we did receive a few comments in that, but today we have Howard again. Thanks again, Howard, for your time, and we're looking forward to this next discussion. Over to you.
All right, excellent. Looking forward to today. Looking forward to your responses. So let's get going. So this is the pathway. We have explained it before. This is the sort of area that we're looking at as people that are wanting to get to this area, or in a way wanting to understand. That's an executive pathway. How would they get there? Okay, then we've got the definition of the data executive, the chief data officer being CDO, the CAO, chief analytics officer. Now, of course, you'll see things like CDO standing for Chief Digital Officer, and that, but in this context, it's CDO. Okay, and then we see exploit. The objective is to exploit data analytics to drive digital revenue and support operational improvements. Okay, all right. So here's the challenge for today. That's especially for Duncan because he has had an easy week. So he's gonna help us, or you're all gonna help us write a vision statement. So here's the context, and I don't know if you guys have read any of the CDO playbook. And it goes something like this: you've almost got 90 days, your first 90 days, first 100 days, and you've been in the company. You've had some time to understand what it is that's going on, and we want to present your data vision to the board. And share it with the board. So just in terms of giving you some clues in terms of this, it's got to be short. So what I'm looking for is one or maybe two to three statements specific to your business. Let's not worry too much about that as soon as it's been recorded. But if you'd like to share some specifics, that's fine. Keep it simple, keep it ambitious, and describe your purpose. Now, what you will see is at the end of this, I'm going to present a vision on a page that I put together and a vision statement. It's not short, but it just tries to take in all the things that we've learned today. All right, so I'm looking for some feedback in terms of if you had a data vision or if you had to share it with the board. And it can be at generic levels, right? So what is it that you would want to share and communicate with the board? If you can give us some sample statements. And ask any questions if you'd like, if you want a bit more clarity. Don't worry about your spelling, Paul. Your keyboard doesn't spell properly, so. Everyone's quiet.
Yeah, geez.
So, give you an example. What's not a good statement? Not a good statement is we're going to make lots of money, or we're going to build the best brand, or stuff like that. And this is an interesting time with the CDO. He's got to start to show that he can benefit the company either with revenue or operational efficiency, right? So those are the sort of things that you're going to want to target at this stage.
Cool.
Still no takers. Duncan?
I thought you said we should write it, so I'm still typing it.
Oh, you're still typing. Oh, you can just do one statement at a time, so short and sweet statements. And you can do a few if you want. Or you're writing the whole statement. I am impressed if you do that.
Yeah, I'm writing the statement.
Okay. And Paul's right behind you, and Sheldon's not far away either. And don't feel too bad, guys. This is probably the thing when you build a data strategy. This is probably the thing that is the shortest and takes the longest to prepare, because you're really trying to use words that the board can relate to. You know, Sheldon, if you think it's something about investing, you know, what is it? How would data help the board, and what sort of value can you add? Okay.
Oh, it went away when I tried to type my second statement.
Oh, okay. Then you. Sorry, I didn't say multiple statements. Sorry about that, but that's okay for you. Okay, great.
This is not my game. This is not my favorite thing, guys. But here we go.
3 words. Just do 3 words. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's. I mean, and this is typically what they refer to as an urgent data strategy. And that is about getting the reports, right? And understanding. Okay. All right, great. Okay, excellent. All right, so let's start to break down some of the areas that we do in terms of making decisions. But thanks for that. We will come back to it. Now, I'm sure this is one of the areas that you've heard of before. Maybe some of those that are not in the data game haven't heard of it, but this is almost a progression where data becomes information when you add context, and you get knowledge when you start to see patterns or almost the core of what's making that information. So, as an example, what would the core things be for a customer? What are the core elements? And that may be the account and the size of the wallet or things like that. So that's the knowledge that you have of a customer. What makes the customer tick? How do they make decisions? How do we segment them? And then we've got wisdom in having a higher level of understanding, and you know almost by gut feeling the way in which your customers will interact or react to what you present to them. So that's the wisdom. Now, I'm not aware of any company that's at that top level that has all of that, but it's something that we can go through. And any questions on this area? So data is almost going to be what's in your database tables. Okay, so data may be, an example of data may be 100,000. All right. Now, when we bring in context, that may be the yearly salary or monthly salary. Okay. And then knowledge would be, you know, what is the trend over the last 5 years, and how does this go about that scenario? So does everyone understand that hierarchy of what we're talking about?
Yes.
So what we're constantly trying to do is give the business more and more knowledge and wisdom about their customers, about their products. All right. Just information is not good enough, because that's not telling us what's going on with the customer, what's actually happening. All right. So now I'm going to do a quick test with you guys. So there's the question. Red is it data, information, knowledge, or wisdom? What do you guys think? Wisdom. Okay. Data, right?
How would have said data, but it's not submitting for me.
Yeah. Okay. So data is correct. So it has no context. It's just the color, right? So it's red. And you don't know much about what's going on there. All right, so it's almost like my example of 100,000. I can see an element maybe in an Excel spreadsheet or a CSV. It's 100,000, but what is it? What does 100,000 relate to? Now that's data. Okay.
Yeah.
Does the person who said wisdom understand? Okay. All right. Now let's go to the next level.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next thing is we need to stop, or we could have an accident. So what would you guys think? Is that data, information, knowledge, or wisdom? Ah, nice. Okay, maybe I gave it away. But 100%, right? So you have the knowledge that if you go through that red robot, we could probably have an accident, right? Now, if you're just learning or you don't have much experience, you probably would not have that knowledge, right? You would have you may have the data that it's read, and we've got the information, but we don't have the knowledge of the consequence of not responding to that traffic light. Okay, let's go to the next one. Then we say, it's raining and you're on a motorbike. This has happened to me a few times. I better slow down before the white lines. Okay, all right.
Okay, I get it. I get it.
Okay. One more vote. Okay, great. Fantastic. You guys are really switched on and you're catching this one up. Proper CDO. And then the next statement is the upcoming traffic light is red. Which one is that? Okay, fantastic. So you guys picking up how amazing this thing is. So if you just go through it, red was data. There's a column in the database, there's a column in your Excel spreadsheet where the color of the traffic light at this time was red. Okay, information, when we add context, it's on this street and it's a traffic light that is red. And that gives us the context, which is really important. And then we've got the knowledge to say, guys, if we ignore this light, or we better stop or terminate, otherwise we're going to have an accident. And the wisdom is, now I've got all these things going on around me. I'm on a motorbike. It's raining. I've got white lines coming up. And I'm going a bit too fast at the moment. So I better start taking some action now, which is slow down, so that when you hit the white lines on the road, you're not going to skid and go through the intersection like I've done a few times. Are you guys comfortable with that concept? So can you see how much it's changing from that one cell within the database to where you want to go in terms of providing the business with answers and direction?
Very good.
Yeah.
It's amazing, that little thing of just to make that thing come alive. Otherwise, it's just a triangle and you're not sure what to put in where. And you don't realize always how simplistic the data can be on its own without some context. Okay.
Howard, so like this morning, I was just writing my comments to the chat last night about reporting in this same subject or similar subject. And I was trying to articulate it better, but I was just thinking of transaction data. And we get the transaction, we got the number, but that's it.
Yeah.
There's nothing about it, and we're almost like we're so used to just seeing that number that we kind of think it's okay. And there's so much more to that as you just illustrated, which is brilliant.
100%. Yeah. So as you keep on adding contextual understanding, patterns, stuff like that, you're getting a much bigger picture of what's going on.
Oh, brilliant.
All right. So now what I'd like to, so I'm just going to explain this to you. This is a rating, and they call it dynamic data-driven knowledge business transformation. Now, the CDO playbook actually calls it D3, which is dynamic data-driven business transformation. Now, I'm going to explain it a little bit to you, and then I'm going to ask you sort of where do you believe you are in your department. So it starts off at being data disabled. So we're resistant to the data. So here's a good example of resistance. The report says the road is congested. I don't believe it. Let me try. All right. So this report that you've been given is wrong so many times. You've got to get somewhere quickly. So everything stays the same, and you leave a bit later. When you're data enabled, and you see the value and understand, all of a sudden you start making different plans. So you said, the report says the road is congested. Okay, that means we better leave earlier. Okay, otherwise we're going to get late. Now when we go to data-led, we're talking about predictions, and we're trusting those predictions, right? Those predictions have been right on numerous occasions, and we're believing them. So now it says the report keeps on adding on. It says it's going to take us 4 hours. We now need to leave 4 hours earlier. Now that's a disaster for some of us. There's just no ways we can do that, but that's the thing that we're going to have to do. And when you look at it, it's a case of, that's crazy. It should never take me 4 hours to get to Rosebank when it's 10 minutes up the road, but that could be the case. Now, when you get to data-driven, all right, the decisions are dependent on the data, and the transformation that the business makes is a consequence of the data. So the report says we need to turn left right now. To get there on time, turn left. All right. Now, please remember, I'm doing a very simplistic example here. So I'm not suggesting that you just kiss your brains goodbye, all right, and do whatever the system tells you, but you're not, at this point in time, there won't be too many debates if you've had a lot of success in terms of data-driven. And then knowledge-driven, it says, the report says we have a customer that needs our help. They're en route. So now, please see if you can pay attention to that customer. So all of a sudden, the system has more understanding of where you at, what's the situation, and stuff like that, and can start bringing in some recommendations. Almost like the Google Glass scenario that we've spoken about. Okay. So what I'd like you to do now is, just as a rating, where do you believe your company is? So data enabled is we're starting to see value, and we'll start paying attention to those reports. It won't be a case of, okay, the report says 22. Do I need to go and check it out? Because I'm going to deliver this to my CIO or CEO, whatever it is. So you're already in a good place compared to, shucks, it tells me the revenue is 50,000 and I trust it and I don't need to check it. Are you guys all still there?
Yeah, it's interesting. For some, it could be in transition stage from disabled to enabled.
Paul?
No, I think it's shucks. It's a bit of I was too quick on the guns and selected data enabled, because there's some areas that I suppose not as well.
Okay. All right.
But so, it's still obvious that we're not moving from that state. And,
right.
If I refer even back to previous environments, hasn't changed, and I'm obviously the common denominator here. So it's me that needs to drive so we can take on the next level.
You need to show them the next level, yeah.
Because what's obvious for me how it is, if I don't move on, I'm not gonna, because data is dumb, right? It can only sort of do what you make it do.
Right.
So your environment is dumb, I should say. So it won't build itself. You need somebody.
Correct. So if we go back to the thing, if I just present red,
yeah.
Well, yeah, and or 100,000. So yeah, you're correct, and you've got to start ensuring that you can take them up that chain. And somebody came up with a nice idea. They basically said that when you look at building a data strategy, use what they refer to as a vertical stripe. So you can take one piece of information like water supply. Let's say you're dealing with the water department. You take one domain, and then you try to bring it and give them enough information to knowledge and wisdom. And then what you'll do is you'll try to take the domain very close to them, like water demand, and then you'll try to go data, information, knowledge, wisdom. And so you can give them a journey of how you're going to improve their data. And the important part would be to link that to their value chain. All right, so you start off in areas of the value chain and you just keep on uplifting the data and to a point where they know that it's led or that they can trust it. All right, so this is how we tackle these sort of data strategies and how we sort of start presenting that to the board.
Howard?
Yes.
Sorry. Would you mind just giving like a brief example of, like you said, with water demand, of just what those different stages, how you present it?
Yeah, so you may, in a scenario of data, so within a specific area, the demand for data is 100 hectoliters or whatever that may be. Now, the answer would be this area, so it's going to be 100 hectoliters as data. You then got to give it context. So where is it? And then you try to keep on adding more information about knowledge to say, what is our percentage wastage of that water in that area? So could we deal with consumption or handle consumption because we understand the wastage and the fact that we may be going into a drought, what should you be doing about it right now in terms of lifting that up? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks.
And I've got an example here of customer churn, and just to show you how those things would look like as we take them up that chain. All right, so these are the questions that I really like in terms of discussing with the business, and we ask them, all right, so how much does data support answering this question? What happened this period? Okay, and that may be in a whole lot of different things. It may be customer revenue, product, expense, whatever your balance sheet is looking like. You should be able to break it down. Or how many transactions did that customer have, and what did they buy? Did they buy airplane tickets, or did they buy hotel bookings, or whatever it is? That's the what, and it will describe the issues of who bought it, when did it happen, and so that's all encompassed in this one question: what happened? And we refer to that as descriptive analytics. That's describing the state of play. That's almost giving business an understanding. Now, we all know that it's okay if you're running a very small company and you've got your numbers and you've got your Excel spreadsheet coming along, you wouldn't really need this. But when you scale up, all of a sudden that sight gets lost, and you've got to have an analytics, which is typically BI, that's going to report on that for you. Okay. And then we go into the next scenario to say, why did it happen? Okay. So we call it diagnostic analytics. Okay. So what was the cause of the reduction in revenue? What was the cause of the fact that the customer didn't spend anything this month? What was the cause that the customer closed their account? All of that is caused what, why did it happen? And then what you can then say, the next step that you go up to in terms of being proactive is what will happen next period or in the next 6 months. So an example could be when we're in COVID and people are defaulting on their credit and their loans, what we could be saying is that the default rate is going to climb. And so if we keep on with this trend, we're going to get into trouble. We're going to have lots of defaulters on hand, and they will not be able to pay the money back. So we've got to be a little bit careful of what's going on. And then it's the next one, which is really helpful, is prescriptive analytics. So now we're looking at optimization and foresight. So what should we do about it? How do we make it faster? Or how do we prevent it from happening? Or how do we get more revenue? Or how do we reduce the rate that we're burning at? What can we do? And what we are saying now it's the data that you got out of predictive is going to help you understand this and what's going on in the environment. And then the final question that we've got here is, what don't I know? So to be 100% sure of providing an offer, for example, not sending the guy to, not sending the sheriff around to pick him up and to put him into bad debt. Let's leave him, and I'm sure he'll be able to pay because he's just getting over this transition period. What don't I know that if I knew, I would take a different decision or action? Can you see that progression? Making sense?
Yeah, thanks, Howard.
All right. So now these are typical questions that your business has to answer, right? Yeah. Every single month, every single quarter, maybe every week, it's going to be what is going on, why did it happen, what were the changes, if there were any radical changes or changes from your expectations, what's going to happen in the next period, what can we do, and what don't I know? So, I mean, we're talking about 5 questions here. And so it's these fundamental questions that business can't always answer or trust the answers that they get. All right, so this is the scenario that you would do if you're a CDO and you went into this business. What you're going to be trying to do is as you go around, you can say, well, how many of these questions can I answer with data? And how many of these questions are storytelling? And I'm not saying that storytelling is wrong because you may not have the data, you're now working with your knowledge and your wisdom to tell a story. That doesn't mean you're going to be wrong. So you are working with almost tacit knowledge to be able to answer it. But what we are trying to do, right, our focus is trying to be having sufficient data to answer the question, and then in some cases move from a human decision-making to a machine decision-making, right? So you're going from human-centric to decision-centric. Of course, it depends on the complexity of the decision, but that's where the transition is. So take an example for your company. Where would you position yourself? Do you have sufficient data to explain exactly what happened? Can you understand why it happened? A good example of this may be I'm dealing with a call center, and I'm noticing that I've got lots of customers terminating on a product, and we can actually, when you just do a call center and you just monitor the time that it was spent on and the number of times they call, you may come to the conclusion that you've got a very, very effective call center. But what needs to happen, and they call it voice of the customer, is you need to be able to mine all of the interactions that person's had on the call center to say whether it was positive or negative, and they refer to that as sentiment analysis. So there's indicators to say this customer is gonna terminate with us, if they've had 20 calls in the last month, they've been very irate every single time, you're getting a good understanding of where you are with that customer. And that's what they call listening to the customer, or voice of the customer. It's called VOC.
This is just confirming the other poll that you did.
Yeah. Okay, great. So what this is telling me is that you've got enough business intelligence to tell the execs that what's happening, and that's fantastic. And so they on the pulse. You are starting to come down in terms of why it happened. So you can explain why the customer terminated. Now that number that you've got there is pretty high, and it would be interesting in terms of Duncan. Maybe I shouldn't really be asking these questions, but if a customer terminates their contract, will you know why? Paul, if you talk about Rennies, and I suppose you may know why because your account manager has told you, but would you know why because of data? Would there be sufficient data to tell you that this customer is going to, the reason?
So for us, we are already at that level where we can predict that a customer is going to leave us using data. And it's just something that we started 2 months ago, where we are now sharing those insights to say these are the customers, they have not left yet, but we do predict that they're going to leave us.
And have you achieved the level of reliability so that when your forecast says they're going to leave, people better get their butts in gear and do something?
Yeah, so what I've done is I've set up a fortnight engagement with business, the front end stuff.
Right.
That every 2 weeks we sit and discuss to say these are the people that are going to leave, and I want them as business to tell me what are they doing about those people. So they usually tell me, no, we are calling them, we're engaging them.
Right.
But what I want to see at the end of the year is actually to compare, to say, I predicted that these people will go. Have they left or not?
Right.
And if they stayed, what did we do to retain them in?
Right.
And if they just stayed without having been engaged, that could mean our prediction was not accurate and things like that.
Right. And this becomes a tricky point, and I battled a bit to explain this yesterday, but it's almost a case of, if I don't understand why, then my forecasting in what will happen gets harder and harder, right? Because then I'm really just forecasting at a high level number. So, for example, I've had 10 periods and I've lost, and this is a simplistic example, I've lost 20 customers every period. I can be pretty sure that I'm going to lose 20 customers in the next period. But which customers is what you're trying to forecast. You got to bring it down now to which are the customers that you're going to lose. Otherwise, you'll get your team running after everybody, and that's not going to be very helpful. So just having a prediction that you're going to lose 20 is meaningless. Yes, you may get it right, but it doesn't help the business at all. Then that question is, once you've identified, say, customers 1, 5, and 11, you now need to say, well, what can we do to maintain this customer? So a simplistic example would be give them more product features on their account, or let's reduce their fees, their transaction fees.
Yes.
But what you want to be careful here is just reducing the fees and not realizing that they're actually unhappy with the features that they've got, is not really going to change their mind. So what should we...
Those are levels, Howard. Those are really going a level deeper down.
Yeah.
Specifically
exactly.
to the one.
Yes. Yes, I'm glad. But where I love this discussion, right, was a case of, don't you think that these are the fundamental questions that business are going to ask?
Yeah, they are.
It's amazing, right? So it's any businesses, the business owner is going to be asking these questions, or whoever it is, who's ever in charge of the customers, whatever it is. These are the type of questions. Now, we then start seeing how far we get into storytelling mode, right?
Howard,
Yes.
so just to help me understand here, does this need to be like zoomed out data in the sense that you look at the aggregated data across the division or whatever, or can this include things like qualitative data where the sales rep or whatever took notes on a CRM database or whatever?
It's
that
both.
Be included?
Yeah, it's both. So you get textual analytics, which I shared earlier on. That's the idea of the voice of the customer. Now, whether it came through a call center, whether it came through an account rep or a customer representative that chatted to him, all that data's got to come in so we can start listening to the data. Otherwise, it's relatively meaningless to have that facility because, and I'm sure you've seen that, Vodacom phones, and I say, they give them feedback and I say, I hate your service. Never had anybody come back to me. And I've been as blunt as that. I've said, I hate your service. No one has picked up the phone and said, why do you hate the service? They send me another one the next month saying, what do you think of our service? Now, all they're doing is they're aggregating to your point, Sheldon, and saying, 99% of the people are happy.
Yeah.
So then they play a numbers game, and then they operate at such a high level that and it's helpful. And there's always levels of detail. Duncan brought this out as well as a case of you got to, the level of the aggregation is important, but then when you want to do a targeting thing of how to respond, and especially when it's big numbers of giving discounts, let's say we're bleeding and we see we're bleeding, let's just cut everything by 20%. Wow. Okay. Now we've just cut revenue by that amount and we don't know why. So that was based on somebody's storytelling, and I promise you next month I'll give you another story.
Okay, thanks.
And then the next one is, what don't I know? So this is all about understanding the decision and elements that affect the decision, and you don't know that. So your first thing that you start to do is try to understand what you don't know, and then look for data sources to help you get there. All right. Okay, so this is a long journey, as Duncan pointed out. It's not an easy journey, but it's a journey that you've got to put forward to your board, right? This is, you say you're gonna, this is the way we're gonna walk, and this gives the confidence of how we walk there. All right.
But Howard, sorry, if I can, just another observation about these questions. And I don't know how Duncan feels, but do execs or do leaders know that they can expect answers? They should be expecting answers from the data team to these answers, because if I'm phrasing it correctly, so when you're in a meeting with leadership, you see they're frustrated. They are asking these questions, but they're not necessarily directing it at the data team because they don't necessarily know that this is where data should be taking them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, now, and that's also typically because they don't have a CDO sitting next to them. If they had a CDO sitting next to them, they'll give him a clap to say, why isn't your data giving us these answers?
Yeah.
But because that CDO is not in that position, they then try to shout at business, or the IT guys. The IT says we don't have the data. Then it goes back to business and saying, what are you going to do about it? Give me more information. And then it starts happening in Excel. And they start collecting like crazy, and they try to marry the two together to improve the storytelling.
Yeah, sure. Interesting, eh? Wow. Okay, thanks, man.
Duncan, is that in line with your thinking, your experience?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this to me is what I'm saying in terms of a vision on a page. One would have to sort of put time periods on this so you can see, and I've got animation on PowerPoint, but here's my data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. Notice where we're starting to get to the wisdom area is when we start to become knowledge driven. All right. Information is happening where data comes into and starts getting connected using business intelligence to the dimensions of the BI, the customer, the location, the product, the feature, the cost, the weather, the whatever it is. That's when business intelligence comes along and it answers the what happened. So these things in orange are what we refer to as analytical techniques. Okay, so Sheldon, there you see sentiment analysis on qualitative, not quantitative, textual analytics. Those two work together. And then we have predictive, which is statistical analysis and predictive modeling, forecasting, and multivariable statistics. We then go up to the next level to say, what should I do? Now we have technologies and techniques like knowledge graphs, neural networks, operations research in terms of optimizing for the best outcome. And notice that when we're in this area, we're giving people foresight. So here we've just got information, and then when it's done properly, it gives us context and curation. We then move into foresight. We then look at optimization, and then we start learning. What is it that we don't know? And this is what is the technique which is referred to as deep learning, cognitive analytics, and taxonomies and ontologies. So now we're into what we refer to as knowledge driven. So we're almost putting a knowledge map of how things work on top of our data to have a better understanding of the levers related to that customer and what we're working with. So here we see on this graph, this is our value of data is getting better, and our ability and our maturity on our transformation, disabled, enabled, led, driven knowledge, we're increasing on that. We're increasing on the DIKW. We're handling multiple of the questions. Now, what I've got here, and I'm sorry, I couldn't, I clipped it off, which is what I refer to as the OODA loop. And this is referred to as observe what's going on, what's happening, orientate yourself, why did it happen, what's going to go on, then decide and then act. Now, the smaller you can make this loop, the more you're going to beat your competitors. All right? So if you start getting onto something in terms of what happened, why did it happen, what will happen, and you start adjusting your rates or whatever it is, then what's going to happen is bank down the road is going to say, oh, you know what, Standard Bank or Standard Chartered just decreased their transaction fees. Why are they doing that? What is it? What are they being told? And then they start looking at why did it happen? What's going on? And then you make another change. And they stay in what we refer to as this, I think it's, no, sorry, I didn't get it. That's the inertia loop. If you stay here, you're in inertia. You don't get to move. You're not getting closer to the decision or action. So this is inertia, and this is where you need to get to an imperative point of view from a sustainability point of view. So the more you can reduce that loop that it's taking you to observe and orientate, observe, and decide and act, the quicker you're going to build up momentum in your business. Are there any questions on that?
Wow.
Yeah, I've seen the 5 being described before, but not at this intensity, Howard. This has been for me a great vision on a page. This is really mind-blowing for me. Thanks for this.
And I'll show you a little bit on Excel as how it presented to my board. So let me just show you that one quickly. Sorry. Yeah, Paul?
Sorry, were you talking about this? Just dropped something in the chat box. Is that what the slide you were looking for?
No, this is, I've got it now. So notice that we start off with data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. That's what we're all trying to get, better knowledge and wisdom. And that's the DIKW. So the vision is, guys, whatever data we're dealing with, whatever data domain, we're going to start to, our ambition is to move away higher than information into knowledge and wisdom, right? That's what our goal is. That's the ambitious statement, the vision statement. And we want to be able to answer all these questions. So whichever question you come along, what happened? Why did it happen? What will happen? What should I do? What don't I know? We want to answer it with data. Okay? That's where we want to get to. So within 3 years, so we can say year 1, we're going to be doing this, year 1.5, 2, year 3, we want to be there. That's, now you start putting time frames. Now this is the difficulty, but this is the value you're getting out of it and your maturity. So then we talk about information, foresight, optimization. We want the best outcome, and then learning in terms of building corporate memory. So when people leave, it's no longer dependent on their good storytelling. We've got the wisdom, okay? And then these are the techniques. These are the analytical techniques. You see them coming up here. Statistical analysis, taxonomies, ontologies, deep learning, neural networks. And this is the analytics continuum: descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, descriptive, and then prescriptive and cognitive. And then we go to the business transformation. This is how we're going to transform the business, understand its data culture and business transformation that you're getting in here. And then this is the reduction of our OODA loop. Okay, so that's the story that we want to tell the board. All right, so let's put a quick example. This is a customer churn use case that I've been working on with a friend. What happened? The indicator was contract revenues down. When did it happen? This is the current period. Where did it happen? In South Africa. Who did it happen to? It's our customers, and the persona is our doctor practitioner. Now, it's helpful to have these personas, and you'll see it coming out. Why did it happen? We used a technique called textual analytics, and the answer that the voice of the customer kept on saying is that they're getting insufficient value. All right, what will happen? Now we have to get into prediction, forecasting, and the forecasting is telling us the trend will continue. Now what should we do? Okay, so we've got 2 levers. We can pull the discount lever, or we can push the product feature lever, value. All right, now we've got 2 hypotheses that have come out here. And we got to be able to experiment and test, right? Before we just say hit the discount or give them discount, we got to test it. So we got 2 hypotheses. If we provide discount to our low revenue doctors, we will retain them. If we provide value add features to our high revenue, we are going to keep them on for longer. So that's an hypothesis, and what we've been able to prove is the recommendation on give discount to the low revenue doctors, and they're 1, 5, and 11. Those are the doctors that have come out. What don't we know? Well, we don't understand the market conditions and the financials of the practice, of the doctor's practice. So we would want to confirm that. So we need to confirm our segmentation that they're sitting in is low revenue. Maybe they lied to us, or they're not giving us the right understanding, and they're actually middle revenue. Therefore, a discount is not really going to help. Are you guys sort of seeing how these business analytic use cases play out?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks.
It's amazing how when you break it down into these little questions and stuff like that, you've got a whole lot of things that you need to pay attention to, and data's got to be providing you with those answers.
This is amazing, yeah.
Okay, so then this is what my vision statement looks like, and I was expecting you guys to get something like this, but not to worry. Look, this is a long-winded one. I'll work on it more and more, but we need to constantly stretch our understanding to build knowledge and wisdom up the DAKW. We need to support decision making and action taking by providing answers to unanswered business questions, such as what happened, why did it happen. We use curated information assets to provide foresight, optimization, and corporate memory. And with our people, we have the appropriate data management and analytical techniques to address decision difficulties, thereby enabling the business to transform its data culture and data-driven reactions to shorten the observe, orientate, decide, act timeframes to ensure sustainability. Does that give you an idea of how you build these things?
Ask us the question
Oh,
again
wow.
from the beginning. Okay. I need to meditate on this.
Okay, but do you see how you can build these things up? You know, so you're not storytelling as well. That's what you got to be careful of, because then you're going to get them into what Gartner refers to the hype cycle. The vision statement comes out, they bought the hype, and then they go into the trough of disillusionment, and then they keep on slipping back into it, and then they should be going into the curve of enlightenment, but you can't keep them there. And I can tell you, even with this, it's going to happen, but you have to keep on being able to say, these are the steps we're taking, this is what we've achieved, and show them the progression that's going on. All right, so you've got to show them how you're climbing this loop. Notice you haven't spoken about technologies, or and I mean, and it may be helpful to people like yourself. I'm assuming. I mean, a lot of this stuff can be understood. It gets a little bit tricky when you get here into taxonomies and ontologies, but operations research. So you haven't gone too far into the depth and the quagmire of data management, right? I don't see master data, metadata. I don't see any of it here, right?
No,
And
lifting up above product, and
they wouldn't be interested in the fact that I've got to build a metadata business glossary, wada. Doesn't matter. Okay, guys.
Good. I think everybody's a bit stunned. So.
No, but Duncan will do it tomorrow, and he'll present it all, and everyone will be very excited.
You know what, Howard? I will need your permission to to use this, because we are actually having a board session next month around I think it's the 8th of September. I'm not too sure.
Okay.
And we are supposed to also show our data strategy there. So I think I'm even really embarrassed to even show what I initially had as a data strategy. I think if you would allow me to
certainly
to copy shamelessly and reuse, I would appreciate that.
Yes, certainly. And then if you want more details, so you can talk to it, happy to work with you on that.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Sheldon, all right on your side?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Excellent, guys. Time to get a life.
Yeah. Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate the time, and look forward to connecting again. Cheers.
Thanks. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers, Paul,
Hey,
Sheldon.
Duncan,
Bye.
have a great evening, man. Cheers.
Sure.